Hello, you wonderful human, and welcome to Uncomplication. I'm Ryan. I have a really great episode today. I actually worked pretty hard on this one, and I want to start off with this little mind node here, the outline of today's video. First of all, I want to start with kind of a mix of an apology and just extending some humble gratitude. For what it's worth, since my YouTube channel had all the subscribers show up, it's been really challenging for me. And I think that I have disappointed a lot of people. I think about all the people that joined the crypto garden at the height of the bull run and all of the people that came around to build that community. And I've just been really, really wishy-washy because it's hard to get in front of a camera and it's hard to put yourself out there. And I've been going through a lot of self-work to get myself into a place where I think I can do this more. And one of the things that I'm working on is just accepting gifts, and this channel and you listening to my words is a gift. I don't know what it all means, but I know that I keep gravitating back to it. And so I want to share just a little bit at the outset, and you can see I actually put chapter markers in this one, so you can skip ahead if you don't want this. But for some of you who have been sticking around since the beginning, here's what I'm going to do. I have started a second channel where I am able to post all of my just gushing emotional brain flow. And I'm going to be able to keep that separate from this channel here. That's not to say that I won't be the same, just really kind of present, honest person, but it's just nice having that other channel. So now I can unabashedly post whatever crazy nonsense is happening to me, and I have that outlet, which is something that I need. So the link for that is in the description, but that is not an obligation. That is only for those of you who want to see the train wreck in real time as I figure out life and all of these things. So now there's two channels, and this will be crypto primarily. And not just crypto, but more that focus on, can we uncomplicate life? Can crypto be a tool for liberation? And what does that actually mean, and how does that get all tangled up with the complexity of markets and manipulation and all that stuff? So I'm also reviving a Patreon, and this is another just huge thank you for those of you who joined that Patreon initially, and I didn't keep up with it. Again, that wishy-washiness. There's still 4 of you that are patrons, and I just looked, and it's amazing, and I just want to say thank you. So any of you, if you like my work, if you like what I'm doing, that's a huge part of making this work. I just let go of a bunch of business opportunities and consulting jobs and things that I was doing to make more time for my art and for this kind of sharing. So consider being a patron at any level is going to really help me continue to make this a focus. So a lot of gratitude for you in the crypto garden who have stuck around or have just been patient. Huge gratitude for my family and all the people who have just stuck by me through all of this back and forth. And on that other channel I'll talk a lot more about what that's actually looked like, losing the company I started and then just being in the mix. A lot of gratitude. And then the other thing I just want to say is I'm trying to figure out the model on YouTube where I can monetize this while still feeling good. So I think I might actually turn ads on this video for the first time. I have been so resistant to that. I can talk more about my whole thing on ads and other places, but I need to make this work for myself. And I'm also reaching out proactively to sponsors who I think might support the channel, people and companies and projects that I believe in. And so that's what I'm trying to just make this sustainable. Okay, if you skipped ahead, welcome to the next part. I want to dive in and I want to talk about my crypto thesis. There's a lot that has changed even in the last week or so since I posted a video. And it's always funny, you look at charts, you look at the news, you make some predictions, thesis. My crypto thesis is what I believe and why, and what I'm going to do based on those beliefs. And that is something that I'm continually checking back in with. And a lot has happened, and I want to check back in. I want to see how my thinking has changed. And I want to just acknowledge that there is this Wyckofian pull. So Richard Wyckoff, if you're not familiar with him, go back and watch any of the videos from kind of the early days of this channel. Talked a lot about his market psychology and these cycles of overbuying and overselling, and that accumulation by those in the know that then turns into these euphoric places where the retail investors are buying in. And there's this, I'm just calling it the wyckoff pull, and it goes up and down. And what it means to me is that in my crypto thesis, which always starts from the zoomed out level, and I just look here and I say, okay, well, we've got now over the course of over 20 years, we've got, oh, that's not right, but since August 2010, so 13 years, there's data here on this chart. I see 1, 2, 3, 4 bull run market cycles, and in between each of them is a vertical line that represents a halving event. And that halving event isn't necessarily the reason, but it's a milepost. And I can see the distance between these events, and I can just see how this is going from more and more volatile. This is on a log scale. So if I take it off the log scale, you can see just, how much each of these waves has just surged. But it is eventually a maturing market, and these waves have been flattening out. And in my last videos, as I was drawing lines on the chart, and I just want to stress, I'm not here to make you money. I'm not here to predict things. I myself struggle with all of the things that I'm talking about. That's why I'm talking about them. I'm not an oracle. I don't know the future. I just enjoy looking at charts, learning, and extrapolating and interpreting the data. And so when I come in here and I draw a line on the chart, if you're out there saying, oh, my price prediction is $14,000, these are illustrative, not predictive. And this is me kind of looking at a pattern zoomed way out on a monthly view and saying, there's a lot of sideways movement in these other cycles, and not completely sideways and not down, but just this, up and to the right trending, but we don't see those big breakouts happen until a bit more time has passed. And so this wyckoff pull that I'm talking about is the phenomenon where, as I was looking at this, when we're at these cycle tops where it's so euphoric, and the narrative is that there's going to be a breakout, there's a collapse of the fiat system, Bitcoin is the lifeboat, and the other projects in the space, they've all got their narrative. And it is so incredibly hard to sell when everyone is screaming about how it is going to explode. And so some of my, in my mind, famously wrong predictions were when I was a big holder of ADA, even when things were turning around, I still thought ADA was going to have its breakout and go to $5. That's what so many people in the space were saying. That was even a modest estimate compared to some others. But, even at that top at $2, about where it was, $2.20, whatever, I was thinking that ADA had the possibility of going to $5, because that's the mentality, that wyckoff pull up towards that moon. It's like gravity. When we're in these sales events, these distribution ranges, the narrative is always making us think that it's going to go higher. And conversely, when we are in an accumulation range and we've got USDC losing its peg, and we've got all of these different crypto companies that are under scrutiny and regulations, and the sentiment is so negative that when we're hanging out in these low levels, there's that feeling that, yeah, this could go to 13, this could go to 12. And it's not about, for me at least, it's not about nailing that exactly. I always feel bad when I come on here and I say, yeah, I draw some squiggles, I had it going down and it went up. And I feel foolish about that, but that is exactly the lesson that I'm trying to learn over and over and over, is that when you think it's going to zig, it zags. And especially when it's a sentiment-based thing. So sentiment is Bitcoin is going lower, everyone's bearish, and then we miss the opportunity to really stack up, load up, and then it's going the other way, and it's like, oh shoot, I missed it, but now the narrative is it's going to 1 million. We'll talk about that in a sec. So what do you do next? So let's look at the technicals for just a second, and then let's talk about this big narrative change, because there has been a change in the feeling. Prices are moving back up in the fib retracements, And there's talk on Twitter and all throughout the news of the dollar is going to fail, hyperinflation, and a $1 million Bitcoin. What does that actually look like? So if I just love to scribble all over these charts. Okay, so let's hop over to a Bitcoin chart, hopefully kind of a fresher one. Well, okay, here's another just illustrative kind of thing, illustrative. Let's go to the weekly here. A lot of what I do is I just sit and I look at these charts and I take what I have learned and what I know, and I start just putting hypotheses down. Not to say that this is exact, but it's like, what if we had a wyckoff accumulation and it was about this size, and we just lay it over the chart and then we wait weeks and weeks and weeks to see if it plays out. And so I've had this on the chart, this exact pattern, since back in here. I don't know the first video where I had it, but it's just interesting. This is not saying that this is exact. It's not predicting what's going to happen next. It's just an interesting experiment. And what I'm noticing now is that we have been, as far as just where these bottoms are, maybe not the exact week that it hit, but just for the pattern, having down, little retracement, here was a bottom, and then we had a lower low, and now we're on our way back up to a high. We didn't have this high. We had a high and a bounce down, and then we had another high, but it was significantly lower than the diagram. And now we're on our way back up. So I'm keeping an eye on this, because this overall pattern, as far as the length of it, is, in my mind, the type of pattern that could get us back to the bull run. And the longer time we have an accumulation, the more that spring is loaded, the bigger the cause is built, and the bigger the move can then be to true upside. So when I'm looking at this time period, and we've got this kind of breakout event happening, and I am following other people in the space that I respect and just hearing their opinions, and I don't think anyone thinks, well, we'll talk about the $1 million thing in a second, but that this is just going to shoot up and go to new all-time highs. If I'm just being honest, this is also a hard part about making videos, is like, I want to come on here and just sound so brilliant for y'all, and really it's just a lot of noodling, and that's just fine. Okay, so here's what I'm looking at on the RSIs, just because it's interesting, just because this is some of the stuff I've been evaluating. So with these 4 market cycles, each time we've had a period of time where the stochastic RSI has dropped below the 20 mark and has stayed down there for a long period of time. And that is typically the bear market floor takes place in these time periods. And it happened again in 2017 through 2019, and it entered there again in 2022. And so what's interesting is that, I think was there one more back here? Nope, that's our data. So a couple things is that we have now entered back into that range between 20 and 80 on the stochastic RSI, and every time that has happened previously, it was in that kind of mid bear cycle, between the halvings, and it was during one of these pumps. And I can see that here too. There was this pump. Look, the RSI got pinned, and the price only went up in this time period from this low to the high on the RSI. I mean, at the time, it was a 230% increase. But again, this is from my little thing is blocking, from $185 to $627. So I mean, that is a big increase. But when we look at the overall structure and how much higher it still had to go, we came back down again, and there was more time before we actually made it to all-time highs. And the all-time high actually comes right about the time that it plummets back down. And that was, interestingly, our all-time high actually came after a little bounce after we had already overheated and turned around. So what am I blabbing about? Well, I'm just acknowledging that as far as these larger cycles go, at least for now, we've crossed back up into this range. And with this little surge that we're having right now, this could very well, I don't know if it will, but it could very well, pop above 80 again. Now, does that mean that we're going to new all-time highs? Well, that has never been the case previously. We get to the top of the RSI, and then in this time period, we were up above in the relative strength in the monthly for 730 days before we got to an all-time high. So again, I'm just checking myself, because I think one of the problems in crypto is there's so much urgency when prices seem to be flying and it's breaking out, and it's like we can be fooled by our emotions into making big, bold moves. At least I have done this. But looking at this, it just shows me, I feel, this is just me, I am not saying for you, but when I look at this, I feel like I've got a lot more time. I've got more time to be DCAing. I've got more time to, my crypto thesis, I'm still feeling good about. And so if I jump back over here, let's talk about this narrative change. Okay, so you might have felt it, and this is like the biggest pull to like, am I wrong? Did I miss the bottom? Did I miss the chance? And everything is going to blast off to $1 million. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Balaji, who is the Lord of the Temple, wrong Balaji. Sorry. This Balaji, last week made a $1 million bet very publicly on Twitter that he believed Bitcoin was going to $1 million within 90 days. And this has set off a whole bunch of articles and people on YouTube talking about this. And, it's that kind of narrative changing from the doom and gloom, because crypto's been in a dark place. Like, there's been a lot of shit hitting the fan, a lot of things going under, the banks failing last week and threatening Circle. And then, all of the crypto banks somehow are the ones that got nailed, the ones that were supporting crypto companies. So there's been this real kind of negative outlook, again, that wyckoff pull to the downside. And now we've got this pump in price, and we've got pretty prominent analysts saying Bitcoin at $1 million in 90 days. And so what I want to just talk about for a second, when I hear that, I'm like, okay, what does that actually look like? And if I'm just thinking critically about what it would look like for Bitcoin to go to $1 million in 90 days, to me, it feels a lot less like a cry for Bitcoin and a lot more of a prediction of utter doom and despair for the entire world. And I was just thinking about, if Bitcoin went to $1 million, and let's just kind of take that as our thumb in the wind, finger in the wind, inflationary signpost. If that bet came true, I went to this ratio calculator and I said, okay, if Bitcoin is at about $30,000 today and it went to $1 million, that would mean that something that cost $10 today would go to $333. And so what costs $10 today? I don't know. I mean, shit, a loaf of bread at the supermarket, Dave's Killer Bread or whatever, is around $8-9. So let's just say a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk costs you $10. And in this imagined future where hyperinflation has happened, it would cost $333 for a gallon of milk and a loaf of bread. And I start to just think of and put myself in that world. And I really wonder if that's the case, if Bitcoin or anything has value anymore. And bear with me, I've been thinking about this for the last couple of days. So let's get real. Let's say you have one Bitcoin in your wallet and you traded $1 million for it. And you're in a world where all of a sudden the price of gas is, I don't know, what's gas today? It's like $4 or $5 a gallon. So now gas is $133 a gallon. People in this neighborhood where I live in, we are all now in a situation where we are competing for resources. And this kind of shit happened in Germany after World War I. And I was looking at all these photographs of, people were using Deutschmarks as kindling, and kids were just stacking blocks of it and playing with it because it really had no value. And my question is, okay, that's the condition of everyone around you, and you happen to have Bitcoin in your wallet. What is the likelihood that you're actually going to be able to use that to maintain any semblance of normal life? The point is, we're all so connected that, okay, it's great to diversify your assets. And I do think that crypto is an amazing place to hold value over time. I think if we actually saw the future of a $1 million Bitcoin in 90 days, the chaos and pandemonium would render the Bitcoin thing absolutely worthless. Because if I went to the supermarket and there's lines of people looting the store and I'm holding up my phone and saying, "Hey, I've got Bitcoin in my wallet," there's no infrastructure to process that. There's no tangible value anymore. And that to me is like the heart of this crypto thing, is that in the real world there is food and air and water and people. And if we think that we can individually get out of that in just buying Bitcoin, or I'm smarter than my neighbor, so now I'm going to have bread and he won't. I just think that we're far more interconnected than that. And the world that we're talking about with hyperinflation is something that it's not about me just saying, "Oh, that sucks for everyone else. I have Bitcoin, I'm set." It feels more like a conversation. It feels more like really paying attention to the Fed and the legislators and all of the things that are trying to mitigate this economic situation that we're in. I was watching the blockchain backer the other day, and he was, I think, very astutely pointing out that there's a bunch of news right now about Trump, and there's a bunch of like just kind of the circus of politics news happening while there are some of these really big announcements happening by the Fed. And I don't know. So when I check in with my gut in this $1 million Bitcoin, here's what I really believe. I think we are all so tied together that if that happens, man, it's been a good run. I'm going to hang out. I'm going to huddle with my family. I'm not going to be freaking out about my Bitcoin balance. That's a doom and gloom kind of place. More likely to me is that Balaji, who is Lord Venkateswara, this Balaji, this dude is what, the former CTO of, is it Coinbase? I forget, but he was like a chief staff in one of these big crypto companies, and I think he knows what he's doing, and the timing is right in this period of retracement for that kind of distributive sales cycle to happen. And so, here's, I'm not making predictions because I think anyone should follow them. I'm just talking about what I believe and why. And I think that we're going to see at some point here, and it might have already happened as we kind of get into these middle-ish fibs, I think that we're going to see another little distribution range. And I think it's going to eventually come back down, and that's fine. We saw the wyckoff pattern earlier. And I think that over time, we're going to be trending back towards all-time highs. But we've got this quasi-euphoric, crazy prediction, narrative-based thing right at the time when things are getting towards a natural technical peak. And it feels a lot more likely to me that we're going to be hearing about this for a few weeks. And then what we're going to really start hearing about is the legislators are cracking down on crypto, and they're closing up crypto banks, and they're closing up exchanges. And there's so much ammunition that has been collected against crypto that I think that we will have another narrative bomb in the other direction in a couple weeks that will deflect everything back down. And that, to me, just fits with the nature of these cycles. The RSI, if I look at on the weekly, we've been cooking up here. We touched on, between 180 for the last, basically since January. And it's not hard to just look and see how, regardless of what price is doing, this is an oscillator. It goes up, it goes down. It can crawl along the top for a while, it can crawl along the bottom for a while. And whatever goes up comes down. And so that's that's just where I'm at. So with a lot of words, basically saying, checking in with my gut, checking in with the technicals that I can look at, checking in with kind of the thumb in the wind of the sentiment analysis. I feel like right now it's still kind of that DCA strategy is the strategy I'm happiest with. And I'm not a trader anymore. You know, I've been kind of doing some paper trading and just thinking like, do I want to get back into this? If we get into a bull run again and it's like obvious and cooking, like, yeah, I think it'd be fun to play the altcoin slot machines and be doing some more of that. But for right now, that zoomed out perspective, I think that the DCA strategy is still my favorite because I have right now a very respectable stack of Bitcoin, and it all just collected in the background while I wasn't paying attention. And that was great. And what I actually did, and I think I talked about this in the last video, is I suspended my buy orders because in the fear and greed, let's go to fear and greed, we've been in the greed zone. And so what I told myself is that when we're greedy, I'm going to pause my buy. You know, yesterday greed, now greed. I'll be pausing my buy when we're in the greed, and I'll be resuming it when it's in the fear. And what I told myself is that I'd be selling when it's in greed. And this is the kicker, is that with everything I think I believe, everything I'm looking at, saying, you know, put your money where your mouth is kind of stuff, it is so hard to sell right now. When people are talking about $1 million and this, like in my mind, this is the right time to be, not all of it, but just DCAing out. You know, DCA in while it's fearful, while it's low, and then DCA out when everyone is euphoric and buying. And if you can just stick to that, I think you will be, you know, incrementally stepping up. Yet I haven't sold because it is so hard. And I just want us all to remember that when things are cooking, when we're, you know, cruising, and even though there's, you know, bearish divergence in the RSI and there's all the technicals in the world telling us we're overextended, we're at our peak, we want to believe so strongly that it's going up or down that it's so hard to hit that button to buy when it's at 18,000, and it's so hard to hit that button to sell when it's at 30,000. And that's crypto, that's the breaks, and I don't know why it's so fun, but I keep coming back. So I'll leave it there, kind of a longer video again, but just a reminder, become a patron if you want to support the channel directly. That's awesome. I'll be thinking of more ways to engage there and just give more love to that group. And a huge thank you to those of you in the Crypto Garden and in the Patreon who have supported me through all of my diva shenanigans. I really have a lot of emotion there. It's been really hard for me. I've tried my best, but I think this is a model that could work. Yeah, I'm also going to be, so I'm going to try and be posting crypto videos on Thursday. And it won't always be crypto. It might be just kind of this idea of, can we uncomplicate? Can we liberate? Can we use crypto and some of these other things for a tool? I have this whole community that I've been working with. It's all around money, and she's going to be a guest on the show. She's been really helpful, just helping me understand my own past trauma with money and where I limit myself. And this whole accepting gifts is really that idea. Like I have value. I'm providing value. That's what I want this channel to kind of be about, is what is our value? How are we manifesting in the world? And can we create a life of art and connectivity and passion by doing what we do and not getting sucked into grind culture or just the really gross attention economy that I have a hard time with. So yeah, and then on Sundays I'll be posting more interview style different guests. And I have one coming up with my friend Taylor. We did this amazing painting that will be part of an NFT project, and we're also going to be selling the painting. And it's huge. Check it out. And it's super cool. So the video that I'm going to be posting is us. We hung out for an afternoon, and we kind of live painted this and just went back and forth kind of add-on style. Got to learn a lot more about him and his process, and just talked about art and life and the attention economy and AI and all kinds of good stuff. So that's coming up on Sunday. And yeah, I appreciate you all. I will talk to you later. All right, cheers.